If they can pull a reaction out of you, they own your position. That is the rule most men learn too late. The modern man thinks power is volume. He thinks the loudest voice wins, the sharpest insult dominates, the angriest response earns respect. But noise is rarely strength. Noise is leakage. It is the sound of a man losing control of himself in public. Watch the men who explode. They argue, explain, defend, justify, perform. They fill every silence because silence scares them. They need the room to feel them, to validate them, to confirm they matter. And because they need it, the room can move them. One comment shifts their mood. One challenge changes their posture. One provocation hijacks their decisions. That isn't dominance. That is exposure. Now watch the calm man. He doesn't rush to speak. He doesn't rush to prove. He doesn't rush to react. He stands still while others reveal themselves. His composure becomes pressure. His silence becomes weight. And because he doesn't leak emotion, people can't map him easily. They can't bait him. They can't steer him. Calm is not softness. Calm is the mask of a mind under command. Machiavelli built power on positioning. In courts and councils, the man who looked emotionally reachable was handled. The man who looked uncertain invited attack. The man who stayed composed forced others to move first, reveal first, expose first. That's why calm is the first step in the Machiavelli method. Before you think sharp, before you move silent, before you strike hard, you must stop giving the world free access to your reactions. This video is not about acting calm. It's about becoming calm, so controlled that chaos cannot borrow your face. Because the moment you master composure, the whole game changes. And that's exactly why calm is rare. Most men are emotionally hijacked, and they don't even know it. In the next step, we strip that hijack away and train control so your mind stays still, your choices stay sharp, and your presence stays lethal. Your reaction is the map you hand your enemy. Every flinch, every outburst, every defensive explanation tells the world exactly where you're vulnerable. That's why calm is not a personality trait. It's trained control. Some men aren't naturally composed, they're disciplined. They practiced stillness until it became normal. Weak men do the opposite. They react fast and call it honesty. They explode and call it strength. They argue and call it respect. But the truth is simple. The man who reacts on cue is being played. Machiavelli saw this clearly. A ruler governed by emotion is not a ruler at all. He is a puppet, and anyone who understands his triggers can steer him. Calm men break that chain by following a pattern that looks simple but takes discipline to master. Pause, observe, choose. Pause long enough that the impulse doesn't drive. Observe long enough to see what's actually happening, not just what you feel. Choose the response that protects your position, not your ego. This is where calm becomes a weapon. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't bite, they lose momentum. When someone throws disrespect at you and you respond with controlled silence, they feel the power shift. When you stop defending your worth, people stop feeling entitled to challenge it. Practical control is built through small behaviors repeated until they become automatic. Delay your response instead of answering instantly. Slow your speech instead of rushing. Lower your volume instead of rising. Hold eye contact without tension. Let silence sit without filling it. Stillness under provocation is not weakness. It is dominance. It forces the other person to reveal more while you reveal nothing. And in any game of power, information is leverage. The calm man collects leverage. The reactive man gives it away. Start training this today. Not with motivation, with repetition. When you feel the urge to react, take one breath and refuse the impulse. When you feel the urge to explain, say less. When you feel the urge to prove, stay still. Calm is my control. And once control becomes your default, you gain something priceless: mental space. Space to think sharply, see patterns, and read the room before you move. That's where the second weapon begins. Most men see events. Sharp men see motives. Calm gives you the space to notice what others miss: patterns, incentives, and outcomes. When someone speaks, the average man hears the sentence. The sharp man asks, what does he want, what does he fear, what does he gain if I react? That is Machiavellian clarity, cold, practical, and precise. Sharp thinking is not paranoia. It's calibration. People move from self-interest, status, and survival more often than they admit. A strategic mind never forgets that. It watches behavior over promises. It measures consistency over charm. It reads timing over talk. Because timing reveals intention. If someone shows up only when you're winning, the motive is access. If they disappear when pressure arrives, the motive is convenience. If they praise you publicly but undermine you privately, the motive is control. Events are surface. Motives are structure. This is why overthinking isn't intelligence. It's often weak structure. Anxiety comes from running too many mental simulations without a decision framework. Your mind becomes noisy because it has no hierarchy, no priorities, no rules for what matters. Sharp men simplify. They reduce the problem to the few variables that decide the outcome. They ask, what is the objective? What are the risks? What is the leverage? What is the season? Then they choose. Machiavelli studied rulers and saw the same truth repeated. Men lose power when they misread people and moments. They strike too early, speak too much, trust too fast, or react emotionally to bait. The sharp man does the opposite. He waits. He watches. He gathers information quietly. He thinks 3 moves ahead while others are still offended by the first move. Sharp men also read themselves. They know what provokes them, what distracts them, what makes them rush. They treat their own impulses as intelligence about risk, not as orders. When you can read yourself, you stop being your enemy's easiest weapon, and you start choosing with precision. Make this your habit. Before you respond, identify the motive. Before you trust, identify the pattern. Before you act, identify the timing. If you are building this blade of perception, comment sharp. Because once your mind becomes clear, the next step is inevitable. You must move differently. The most powerful move is the one nobody sees coming. Silence isn't shyness, it's strategy. Loud men broadcast their intentions because they crave attention. They announce goals, defend their choices, explain their wounds, and narrate every step. In doing that, they hand out information like currency. Every word becomes a clue: what they want, what they fear, what triggers them, what they're building, what they can't stop thinking about. That is a map. And maps are useful to enemies, rivals, and even friends who secretly compete with you. Machiavelli understood that power lives in what you control, not what you confess. The fox survives because he sees traps before they close. The lion wins because he strikes when the moment is right. Silence is how you become the fox. It gives you time to watch, to measure, to read motives, to spot patterns. While others talk, you collect data. While others react, you stay unreadable. And an unreadable man can't be easily manipulated, because nobody knows which lever to pull. Moving silent means you stop announcing your next move. You stop seeking validation for plans that aren't finished. You stop defending yourself to people who already decided what they think. You stop oversharing your process with strangers who don't deserve the blueprint. You let your results speak without warning. Builders work in the dark, performers live in the spotlight. One creates power. The other creates noise. This isn't about disappearing out of fear. It's about choosing secrecy as discipline. Your calm protects your position. Your silence protects your momentum. Your restraint protects your edge. Say it like a code: I move in silence. Because silence is not emptiness, it is preparation. In that quiet, you sharpen your thinking, tighten your plan, and remove everything that can slow you down. You don't move when you're emotional, you move when you're ready. And when you act, it isn't half-hearted. It's concentrated force aimed at one outcome. That's the final principle: striking hard. No warnings. No drama. Just impact that changes the board. 100 weak moves don't equal 1 decisive strike. Impulsive men act constantly because they confuse motion with power. They fire off texts, lash out in arguments, jump into plans, announce new goals, then abandon them the moment resistance appears. It looks like aggression, but it's weakness: energy without aim, pressure without timing, courage without control. Strategic men move differently. They don't act more. They act cleaner. Striking hard means you choose one battle that matters, you position for it in silence, and you hit with full commitment when the moment is right. Timing is not a detail. Timing is the weapon. Machiavelli watched rulers lose kingdoms because they moved too soon, and he watched others win with patience that looked like stillness. Strategic patience isn't hesitation. It's the discipline to hold your force until the target is exposed, until the outcome is asymmetrical, until the strike can't be easily answered. This is why you must choose battles. Not every insult is a war. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every opportunity deserves your resources. Weak men fight on every front and bleed out slowly. Strong men conserve, study, and decide. They ask one question before action: what does this move buy me? If the move buys ego, it's noise. If it buys position, it's power. When the strike comes, it must be decisive. No half steps. No negotiation with fear. A decisive strike is a clean decision executed immediately. Quit the habit, cut the person off, commit to the work, invest in the skill, leave the room, end the argument, lock the routine. People respect what is final. The world responds to what is finished. And your mind becomes dangerous when it learns that action is a command, not a request. Understand the contrast. The impulsive man strikes often and changes nothing. The strategic man strikes rarely and changes everything. One wastes force on friction, the other uses force to create outcome. That is what strike hard really means. One move that shifts the board, not 100 movements that entertain your ego. Now we connect the full operating system: calm to contain you, sharp thinking to aim you, silent movement to protect you, and decisive striking to finish the job. Apply it daily, and you stop being a man who tries, and become a man who ends things. This is the turning point. Because these aren't four separate traits. They're one operating system. Calm gives you control. Control creates clarity. Clarity informs silent strategy. Silent strategy sets up decisive strikes. When you understand the chain, you stop treating self-mastery like random advice and start treating it like a method you run daily. First, act calm. Calm is the lock on your reactions. It prevents the world from stealing your position with a single trigger. Second, think sharp. Once you're not emotionally hijacked, you can actually see. You read motives. You read patterns. You see the trap before it closes. Third, move silent. Clarity is wasted if you announce it. Silence protects the plan, protects the momentum, and keeps you unreadable. And finally, strike hard. Not impulsively, not emotionally, decisively. One clean move that changes the board. This method makes a man dangerous because it makes him difficult to access. Difficult to bait. Difficult to map. Difficult to manipulate. Most men are controllable because they are predictable. Their reactions are predictable. Their weaknesses are public. Their intentions are loud. They can be steered by praise, pressure, or panic. The Machiavelli method removes those handles. Now make it practical. Build silence blocks into your day, periods where you produce without input, without scrolling, without noise. Use reaction delay as a rule: no emotional replies, no instant defenses, no heat decisions. Give yourself a decision window. When the choice matters, decide once, commit, and execute before fear negotiates the outcome. Hold standards like law, sleep, training, work, boundaries, and discipline are not optional moods. They're the structure that keeps the method running when life gets loud. This is why calm men win rooms, sharp men win games, silent men win positioning, and decisive men win outcomes. Put it together and you become the rare man who can sit under pressure without leaking, observe without reacting, plan without announcing, and strike without hesitation. Method activated. But understand this: even powerful men collapse when they ignore the leaks that break this system. Ego. Overexposure. Comfort. Validation hunger. The next step is to expose those weaknesses so you can seal them before they destroy your method. Your biggest enemy is not a person, it's your leaks. Men don't usually get defeated head-on. They get drained. Slowly. Quietly. Through small openings they refuse to seal. The first leak is overreaction. One trigger, one insult, one bad day, and suddenly the calm is gone. The method collapses because you handed control back to emotion. The second leak is ego. Ego loves arguments. Ego wants the last word. Ego wants to win conversations instead of win outcomes. And every ego-based fight costs you position, time, and clarity. Then comes exposure. Social media oversharing. Announcing plans too early. Explaining yourself to people who don't deserve access. Broadcasting your process like you need witnesses. Exposure turns strategy into noise and gives the world a map of your intentions. Another leak is comfort seeking. Comfort is the drug that makes men soft. It convinces you to delay discipline, skip the hard task, avoid the uncomfortable conversation, choose ease over growth. Comfort doesn't destroy you in one day. It destroys you over months by lowering your standards until you forget what you were capable of. Validation hunger is one of the worst leaks. If you need applause to stay consistent, you will always be controllable. You'll chase likes, approval, attention, and permission. And the moment that approval disappears, your momentum collapses. Finally, impulsive decision-making, acting too soon, speaking too soon, moving too soon. The impulsive man burns energy on weak moves and calls it progress. But progress requires timing, not speed. These leaks are the reason most men stay ordinary, not because they lack talent, because they bleed their power into noise, ego, comfort, and reaction until nothing sharp remains. A man can have the perfect method on paper and still fail if he keeps leaving openings. Power must be protected, calm must be guarded, silence must be disciplined, decisions must be clean. If you want to keep the Machiavelli method alive, you need an environment that supports it and a lifestyle that protects it. That means isolation at the right times, discipline behind the scenes, less exposure, more construction. Because the method isn't built in the crowd. It's built away from the noise, where your standards can harden without interference. That's the next phase, the silent build. They will call it luck. You'll know it was silence. The Machiavelli method is not built in the crowd. It is built in solitude, where your focus can deepen without interruption and your discipline can harden without negotiation. Isolation is not a punishment for powerful men. It is a laboratory. It is where you remove the noise, remove the opinions, remove the pressure to perform, and finally hear the signal clearly. In that quiet, you refine the method. You practice calm under boredom. You sharpen thinking through study and reflection. You move silent by building without announcement. And you strike hard by executing small, decisive actions daily until the habit of completion becomes natural. Discipline is the structure that makes solitude productive. Without discipline, isolation becomes drifting. But with discipline, it becomes construction. You train when no one claps. You work when no one sees. You say no to distractions even when they are convenient. You become consistent in the dark. And that consistency builds something the world cannot ignore, reputation. Reputation is not what you claim. It's what your results prove over time. It is the shadow your discipline casts. It walks into rooms before you and changes the temperature before you speak. When you disappear from the noise, people will speculate. Let them. When you stop explaining yourself, they will misunderstand. Let them. You are not building comfort. You are building force. Return when the outcomes are real. Return when your presence has weight. Return when your calm is trained, your thinking is sharp, your movement is silent, and your strike is decisive. That is how powerful men rise without announcement. Built in silence. And once you operate like this long enough, the payoff becomes obvious, not as fantasy, but as reality. The world treats you differently because it can feel that you are no longer ordinary. When you become unreadable, life becomes quieter. Not because the world stopped being chaotic, but because chaos lost access to you. People treat you differently because your signal is different. Respect rises first. Not the fake respect given to loud men, but the cautious respect people give to men who don't flinch, don't explain, and don't chase. Tests become fewer because your boundaries stop producing openings. Provocations lose their entertainment value because you don't react on cue. Manipulators move on because they can't map you. Relationships calm down too. The people who thrive on drama don't feel comfortable near you anymore. The people with clean energy stay. Your circle sharpens because your standards sharpened. Opportunity expands for the same reason. When you stop leaking time and attention into noise, you create momentum. When you create momentum, you create results. And results change the rooms you enter, the conversations you're invited into, and the value people attach to your presence. Emotional stability becomes normal. You still feel pressure, but pressure no longer drives you. You still feel emotion, but emotion no longer owns you. That's what makes you dangerous. A calm mind under pressure is rare. A silent man with clear decisions is rarer. Presence deepens as well. You don't need to dominate a room because you no longer need a room. You carry your own gravity. People sense that you are not seeking approval, not asking permission, not available for low-level games. Some will call it cold. Let them. It's not coldness. It's control. And control creates freedom. You're not controlling others. You're controlling access. You're controlling standards. You're controlling your response, your timing, your movement. And when a man controls those things, the world adapts automatically. That is the payoff. Earned, not imagined. But there's one final step. You must commit to this as a method, not a temporary mood. Because if it only exists when you feel inspired, it will disappear the moment life tests you. Now we lock the code. So here is the code. Act calm, think sharp, move silent, strike hard. Not as a mood, not as a performance. As a method you run every day until it becomes identity. Calm is your lock. It keeps your position when provocation comes. Sharp thinking is your blade. It cuts through noise and shows you motives, timing, and truth. Silent movement is your shield. It protects your plan, your momentum, and your unreadability. And striking hard is your finishing move, the clean decision, the decisive action that changes the board. Put them together and you become the man chaos can't steer, people can't bait, and mediocrity can't own. Most men will never live this way because it requires control when control is uncomfortable. It requires discipline when no one is watching. It requires silence when ego wants attention. But that is exactly why it works. From this moment forward, stop leaking yourself. Stop reacting for entertainment. Stop announcing what you haven't built. Run the method. Hold the line. Build in the dark. Then strike when the moment is right and the outcome is guaranteed by preparation. If you're committing to this code, comment method below. Make it public. And if you want more Machiavellian strategy, self-mastery, and ruthless clarity, subscribe and stay close. The next video goes deeper. Remember, the loud man seeks power. The calm man already has